Hey, wanted to take a quick minute and share with you some visual aids that I came across that I think is very alarming in the fact that the total number for unemployment claims thus far is 30 million people. But yet, of course, with the pandemic side of things, you have that whole health curve, which, according to what we're being told, is starting to flatten out a little bit. And then also from the jobs numbers, with some graphs I'm going to share with you, it also looks like the unemployment claims might be flattening out as well. But yet, looks can be deceiving, especially when we're talking about the very backbone of our economy and how this current situation we're in now, as I mentioned last night from the live stream, is just beginning. And I think the damage that's being done or that has already been done will be extremely severe and not easily something that we can recover from. So the numbers are officially in, and as of now, total amount of devastation that's been done to the human psyche as far as people being forced out of the workforce because of this current lockdown situation. But even as they talk about trying to reopen, the likelihood of that happening in a way that's sustainable for getting everyone out of the 30 million back to work is more than likely not possible due to the restrictions and whatnot that they're going to continue to enforce on us. So I want to thumb through a couple articles here briefly and just share with you some of the headlines and then finish this up with just try to really put this into context as to how severe this is in comparison to the last recession that we had, even though now we've surpassed anything that can be labeled as a recession. And we've gone past that to what a lot of people would consider a greater depression or the Great Depression 2.0. But this article here came out today. It says the deluge of newly jobless workers is crashing the Pennsylvania unemployment system as officials field 20,000 calls a week. And on top of that, a lot of those calls at this current moment, from all the information we're hearing, is not actually able to be responded to in a timely fashion. Therefore, people are not able to actually file their claims. And so that's very sad in and of itself. Next article here says over 3.8 million Americans filed for jobless benefits last week as states struggle with the claim surge. What is very interesting here is some just the visual aids of how severe things really is turning out to be. And so unemployment claims spiked during this current crisis, and just look at the last recession. And so what's most interesting about this is if you try to put this into context as to the severity of how disastrous this was for our economy here, not to mention that every other country around this world is also experiencing the same thing, is that the time frame from the official announcement of the recession was in December of 2007. And it wasn't until June-ish of 2009 that the time frame for which we were supposed to had start to recover, or whatever they might want to throw out there. Not to even mention all the things that were on top of that as far as the QE and all the things that became somewhat permanent of them unleashing and opening up the monetary toolkit. But that's a total of 19 months of what was labeled as, officially as a recession, of which at that point it was the jobless claims was bare minimum in comparison to what we're experiencing now, which should tell you how bad things really are. And so here's an interesting graph here, and it talks about here are the total initial jobless claims over the last 6 weeks, adjusted for the size of each state's labor force. So here in Michigan, here we have 255,000 within just the last couple weeks or so. And then every state here has their own number there. But of course, the darker states happen to be the more severely hit and impacted by this current surge in unemployment claims. Just to give you a visual aid of what it looks like, based upon the fact that in January 4th, the amount of claims that were being filed at that time were mild in comparison to what happened as officially here, as it says March 14th. And this is that curve I was referring to, how it appears to be flattening down from that initial spike of 6.8 million. And so now we have 6.6, 5.3, 4.4, 3.8. And so based upon these numbers here, along with the health pandemic situation, that things are flattening out, it looks as if we're starting to reach a downward trend as to the amount of claims that are being filed. But looks can be deceiving, because the damage that will come from this is something that we will not be allowed to get back into that old norm, because we're being ushered into the new norm. And the new norm will, as I mentioned last night on the live stream, will look completely different. The corporate structure will be done completely different, which will not allow the 30 million unemployed right now, which an overwhelming majority of those individuals do not happen to bring anything of true value to their corporations other than their time and perhaps their skill. And so as a part of the restructuring of the corporate model, I would imagine there will be a lot of people not being called back to work. And then on top of that, those that might get that call back because they're being papered over right now by being over provided for with this unemployment, they will probably end up not going back, therefore shooting themselves in the foot even more. So I want to just wind down and just share with you from a visual standpoint as to how bad things are in comparison to the last recession. So here you have just a small blip of what the recession looked like during that 19-month time frame. And so it right now, 30.3 million is something that it's just no cutting on a switch and getting back to the old norm. And I think people really need to consider the new norm that's being set up and how it will impact you and how you will have your stamp placed on it. And so this last article here, it talks about the job loss surge, and it talks about just within 6 weeks, we're talking about 6 weeks. And as I mentioned, start this off, it's not until we usually get the official word from the government body that says that we've had 2 quarters of, contracting GDP growth and things like that we can consider it a recession. We've surpassed that by 30 million easily within 6 weeks. And then the job loss during the Great Recession happened to be 19 months. So you got 19 months for 8.7 million people to be impacted, and you have 30 million in 6 weeks. So you let me know how, trying to put all that into context, how severe what's going on now truly is. And then on top of that, there's no cutting on a switch and getting back to the old norm, because right now we're being ushered into the new norm, which the government will definitely play a major part in that. So I just want to take a minute to share some visual aids and put things into context as to how severe things really are, in case you didn't know, which I imagine you do. But then on top of that, preparing for the new norm. What are some things that you're doing to prepare for the new norm will be something that we all really need to consider, because self-sustainability is going to be the backbone of everything we do. But on top of that, how do you create opportunities for yourself will be the new way of looking at things. And as I mentioned last night, entrepreneurship, finding new ways to deliver value and service directly yourself into the marketplace will be your ultimate hedge against being dependent upon someone calling you back to work or someone offering you a job or whatnot, further entrapping humanity in what we've been conditioned to expect and to accept, which happens to be for the majority the bare minimum. And so that was the whole fight for the minimum wage, the living wage. And people right now who are fighting for that, those are the primary individuals that are currently out of the workforce, may not have many options available to them other than what the government is providing for them. So let's talk about that. Enjoy your day.